Why would we pay 1,500 bucks for someone who doesn't even present? That's what Greg said, director of procurement, king of condescension, and proud owner of a mug that said I'm not bossy. I just have better ideas. He chuckled as he slid Claire's printed travel request back across the table like it was a parking ticket he didn't plan to pay. She stared at it. Neat black ink, 2 weeks of prep. A bulleted rationale citing vendor consolidation trends, upcoming shortages, and ironically, the exact microcomponent that kept their entire flagship product alive. Claire didn't flinch, didn't blink. She'd seen this movie before. Greg's greatest hits, you're too detail-oriented, that's above your pay grade, and her personal favorite, let's loop in someone with more strategic perspective. Translation: male, mediocre, and within golf cart range of upper management. She picked up the paper, folded it in half, and nodded. Thanks for the clarity. Then she turned, walked the long beige hallway back to her cubicle, and flagged the denial email in Outlook. It wasn't the cost. Greg once spent $1,800 flying to Omaha to foster synergy with a vendor that turned out to be a glorified middleman with a Wix website. It was about control. Claire had too many ideas, knew too many things, knew where the bodies were buried. As her friend in finance once joked, she wasn't loud, but she was sharp. Dangerous in that way quiet women get labeled difficult when they're just 10 steps ahead. The thing was, this wasn't just any trade show. This was the trade show. The one that happened once a year where every supplier, every startup, every disruptive weirdo with a prototype and a dream gathered like moths to fluorescent lit booths. And Claire knew that the European supplier she'd been quietly cultivating for 18 months, late-night Zoom calls, LinkedIn DMs, even sending their admin a baby blanket when her kid was born would be there. But Greg, he didn't care, because Claire didn't present, didn't grandstand, didn't waste $200K a year inflating slide decks with empty promises and Venn diagrams. She sat down at her desk, cracked open her reusable water bottle, and stared at her screen. Her pulse was steady, her breathing even. She clicked over to her personal Gmail and began typing a new draft to Peter from Helvex Components. By the way, real quick, if you're one of the 97% of folks listening to this story without hitting subscribe, maybe give that button a little love. It helps us a lot more than Greg helps anybody. Thanks. She reread Greg's email again, sipping lukewarm coffee. Not cost-effective for non-client-facing staff. She wondered if that was the same logic behind the new espresso machine in the VP lounge. There was a kind of humiliation that didn't sting anymore, just hardened into something heavier. That slow sediment of being told over and over you're valuable but not valuable enough. Claire wasn't shocked, but she was ready, because here's what Greg didn't know, she had already booked time off. Technically. Family obligation in the HR system. Her flights were on Hopper alerts, her Motel 6 reservation nestled safely in her travel app. She'd packed comfortable shoes and a second pair of slacks. This wasn't rebellion, it was insurance. Claire clicked over to her calendar. The trade show started Friday. She'd be there Thursday night, checked in and invisible. No company name on her badge, no branded polo shirt. Just a woman with a laminated map, a plan, and a very particular interest in a booth numbered 4C17, the booth Helvex had quietly confirmed via DM just last week. She leaned back in her chair, letting the fluorescent ceiling lights hum above her. The email from Greg sat in her inbox, glowing like a little red matchstick. Flagged. She didn't forward it, didn't screenshot it, just left it there. Because someday, when the fallout came, and procurement would scramble to find options that didn't exist anymore, and Greg's panic sweat soaked through his pastel button-down, that email would be her receipt. Claire poured herself a glass of red that tasted like regret and vinegar, $6.99 at the corner liquor store, cork splintered halfway in like it knew this wasn't a celebration. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. She'd left the overheads off, just the glow of the stovetop clock blinking 9:41 p.m., mocking her like a second-hand heartbeat. The rejection looped in her head, unbidden. Why would we pay $1,500 for someone who doesn't even present? She could still hear the lilt in Greg's voice, the smugness tucked behind that casual smirk, like her request had been a cute misunderstanding. Like Claire was a child asking to sit at the grown-up table. She scrolled flights with one hand, wine glass in the other. Red-eye, Thursday night. One stop in Dallas, 4-hour layover, $139.04. Spirit Airlines, no carry-on, no legroom, no problem. She clicked book. Then came the motel. She wasn't staying at the Sheraton, where the real exhibitors slept on expense accounts and passed each other in hallways with lanyards swinging and breakfast vouchers in hand. She found a 2-star place with a broken vending machine and reviews that warned of some noise, but staff is nice if you're polite. That worked. 4 nights, she muttered, filling in the credit card details. Her hands moved calmly like muscle memory. She could have been ordering printer paper. Vacation days were easy. She had 9 saved up, requested 5. Used Greg's own maintain work-life balance policy as rationale. He approved it in under 4 minutes. Irony dripped from the screen like condensation on a cheap beer. She didn't tell anyone, not her coworker Marcy who always knew too much, not her sister who'd beg her to play it safe. Not even Peter, not yet. Instead, she opened a new tab and started a clean email. Subject line, brief catch-up during Expo. She kept it breezy, professional. She'd be swinging through the trade show informally and wondered if Peter might be open to coffee or a quick booth-side chat. Then she hit send. She sat there, breathing. The room was still. Somewhere, a radiator coughed. There was no firework moment, no dramatic monologue, just this quiet, buzzing conviction that enough was enough. That if they wouldn't open the damn door, she'd crawl in through the mail slot and set up shop in the foyer. Didn't think she was worth $1,500? Cool. She'd see what kind of ROI she could get on 2 hotel pillows that smelled like wet drywall and a complimentary granola bar. She'd been underestimated her entire career. Too quiet, too methodical, too unwilling to lean in loudly at meetings and regurgitate whatever leadership book Greg had most recently skimmed. But Claire understood something they didn't. Power wasn't loud. Power moved in silence, with spreadsheets, with receipts, with contracts. Her wine was gone, the bottle was empty. So she rinsed the glass, washed it with lavender dish soap, and placed it carefully in the rack. Then she pulled a small leather notebook from her tote, cracked it open, and wrote 3 things. Flight, Thurs, 11:55 p.m. check bags, early booth 4C17 Helvex, Peter Wright Arrow CEO. Business cards, print temp version, the next morning. She would wake up like nothing happened. Answer emails, review order logs, sit through Greg's 9:30 check-in where he'd talk over her and misquote McKinsey slides. But tonight, Claire Mitchell made a decision. Not loud, not vengeful, just clear and final. Claire landed at 5:42 a.m. in an airport that smelled like burnt pretzels and early regret. Her backpack dug into one shoulder. Her budget-wheeled suitcase limped behind her with one sticky wheel that squeaked every third rotation like a sad metronome. She didn't care. She'd slept a total of 43 minutes propped between a man who snored into his hoodie and a toddler who kicked rhythmically like he was auditioning for Blue Man Group. By 8 o'clock a.m., she was standing inside the expo hall, aisle D, foot traffic thick, carpet stiff and unforgiving. Her badge just said C. Mitchell Independent. No logo, no lanyard flair, just anonymity and intent. It was a circus of polished teeth and overstretched smiles. Tech salespeople with firm handshakes and paper-thin pitches. Giant banners that screamed revolutionizing efficiency and booths with espresso machines that served more lattes than leads. She moved through it all unnoticed, no branded polo, no clipboard, no name-droppable job title. Just a black notebook, a cheap pen, and eyes that clocked everything. Peter spotted her first, waving from behind a display stand lined with mocked-up PCB components. Claire, he called like she was an old friend, not a wild card who'd just crossed an ocean of bureaucracy to be here. They shook hands, casual but tight. Didn't think you'd actually make it, he said, half impressed. I wouldn't have missed it, she replied, lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Offered her a bottle of water and gestured toward a quiet corner near the back of their booth. CEO's here. I can intro you, but fair warning, he's blunt. Claire's pulse quickened, but her face didn't show it, so am I. The man was compact, intense, and wore a charcoal suit like he was born in it. Jakob Lentz read the simple card in front of his demo table. CEO Helvex Components. No bullshit title inflation. Just facts. Peter made the intro. Jakob, this is Claire Mitchell, U.S. Market Sourcing Specialist. Knows our product inside and out. Jakob's handshake was dry and firm. What's your angle? He asked, skipping any hello. I know what your current distributor charges, Claire said, and I know they offer zero technical support, poor logistics, and treat your product like a side hustle. Jakob blinked, and I also know that your component is the linchpin in 60% of the show's prototypes, including the one my company builds its entire flagship around. That got his attention. Slight tilt of the head, calculation behind the eyes, and you're offering what? I'm offering you someone who knows the buyers, speaks the language, and isn't afraid to knock on doors. I'm not trying to be your rep, I want to be your partner. Exclusive US distribution. I form the entity. You get reach without the overhead. And I get the leverage I've earned. Jakob stared at her, said nothing. And finally, you'd leave your company? She smiled. I left the moment they said I wasn't worth $1,500. Peter let out a quiet whistle like he hadn't expected her to go full gladiator in the first round. Jakob nodded, thoughtful. The current U.S. partner's contract is up for renewal in 60 days. They're squeezing us, frankly. Treat us like we're lucky to have them. Claire didn't hesitate. You're not. A pause. Then Jakob said, set up a time next week. You show me proof of logistics capability, warehousing plan, order fulfillment, 2 weeks. If you can pull that off, we'll sign a provisional agreement. Claire stuck out her hand. He took it. No cheers, no confetti, but something shifted in her spine, an exhale of years of being benched, brushed off, passed over for louder, dumber men. She left the booth feeling taller, her steps deliberate. Around her, the trade show hummed on, new startups, hired salespeople, recycled jargon. But Claire wasn't looking for approval anymore. She was building an empire out of the cracks they told her to stay small in. Claire sat on the edge of her lumpy motel bed, half lit by a crooked lampshade buzzing faintly like a dying insect. Her blazer hung over the chair, collar damp from 12 hours of body heat and nerves. She'd barely touched the cup of instant noodles perched on the nightstand, too wired to eat, too awake to rest. The meeting with Jakob hadn't ended in applause or fireworks, just a firm handshake and a 2-week countdown. But it was enough, more than enough. For the first time in her career, someone with actual authority hadn't asked her to run it past Greg or loop in someone from sales. Jakob had looked her in the eye, measured her worth, and said, "Prove it." She kicked off her shoes and opened her laptop. The screen glowed like a second sunrise. First, the name. She stared at the cursor blinking in the business registration form. Eventually typed, Mitchell Sourcing and Distribution LLC. Clean, boring, credible. Then came the EIN application, the state paperwork, the domain name, the Gmail for business setup. By midnight, she had a legal entity, a provisional operating email, and a website landing page that said nothing but, "Coming soon," quietly. Sleep didn't come easy. Her brain spun like a fan with a bent blade. Every minute she remembered something else. Warehousing, customs clearance, shipping partnerships, fulfillment center vetting, terms of service, net payment timelines. But instead of spiraling, she started listing. Bullet points on her notepad, one by one, like laying bricks. By morning, her inbox had replies from 2-3PL companies she'd found the night before. She'd scheduled walkthroughs by Thursday. She called in a favor from an old operations manager she used to drink whiskey with at Supplier conferences. The kind of guy who used to say things like, "If you ever need to disappear and reappear richer, call me." Now she was calling. Meanwhile, her day job continued like a sitcom stuck in reruns. Greg was back from his important vendor lunch translation, steakhouse, and small talk. Claire sat in the Tuesday procurement sink nodding at spreadsheets she no longer cared about, while 2 folders sat open in her personal Dropbox. Helvex's NDA signed pricing model draft V1 confidential. She kept everything quiet. Her face gave away nothing. She still laughed at the dumb jokes, still used the same blue pen, still responded to Greg's emails with thanks for the context. But under the surface, she was boiling water, setting traps, building something Greg couldn't pronounce, let alone predict. She spent her evenings watching YouTube tutorials on international shipping compliance and playing phone tag with Helvex's EU logistics coordinator, a brusque woman named Katerina who spoke in acronyms and had zero patience for delay. Claire liked her immediately. By Friday, Claire had a PO system demo lined up, a lawyer reviewing distribution language, and a 16-page operations outline with color-coded contingencies. On Saturday, she received a soft copy of the contract Jakob had promised. It was simple: 5-year exclusivity for U.S. distribution of Helvex's entire microcomponent line. No minimums until year 2. The only clause that mattered: exclusivity is contingent on operational readiness by day 14 post-signing. Claire signed, digitally, without blinking. She sat back in her chair, heart knocking hard behind her ribs. She wasn't just playing the game anymore, she'd flipped the damn board. She thought of all the times she'd been talked over, minimized, watched men with half her competence fail upward while she kept entire vendor ecosystems alive with nothing but spreadsheets and caffeine. They thought she was harmless. Good. She would use that underestimation like jet fuel. She had 13 days left, and everything to prove. Monday morning, Claire walked back into the office like nothing happened. Same blazer, same reusable coffee cup, same tight smile. The same soul-sucking gray cubicle, still decorated with the "Teamwork Makes the Dream Work" poster someone pinned up ironically 5 years ago and no one ever bothered to take down. Greg gave her a lazy wave from his office, chewing something expensive and finger-sticky. "Hey, hope your family emergency went okay," he said, air quoting like a toddler pretending to care. She gave him a nod, even added a soft chuckle for effect. "All handled," she replied, flipping open her laptop. Her inbox was a pit of routine, RFQs, internal update threads, forwarded vendor complaints, and one urgent spreadsheet request Greg had marked as ASAP, and then never followed up on. She answered everything with mechanical precision. No raised flags, no skipped beats, but the real work. That came at night, between 7 p.m. and 1 a.m. Claire built an empire in sweatpants. She hired a virtual assistant in Austin, Jules, ex-operations coordinator with military-grade organization skills and zero patience for fluff. They clicked instantly. Jules set up document templates, ran background checks on shipping vendors, and even designed a minimalist logo, a single, black M shaped like a folded circuit path. Claire reviewed warehouse quotes from 3 third-party logistics firms and selected one in Ohio that could scale fast and didn't balk at a woman asking 1,000 questions about fulfillment timelines. She finalized her wholesale pricing structure with razor precision, just high enough to make her rich, just low enough to keep old clients from panicking when they saw a new vendor name. Meanwhile, in the office, the jokes flew. "Hey Claire, did you even go to the show or just nap through your vacation? Hope you got your tan on. We were over here drowning in RFQs." Even Marcy piped up. "Next time take me with you, we can call it team building, right?" Claire smiled politely, typed calmly, said little. Let them think she'd spent her PTO curled under a throw blanket eating takeout and watching reruns of SVU. Let them joke. Every laugh was another receipt. By Thursday, the documents were real. Bank account, open. Merchant platform, tested. Warehouse onboarding, complete. On Friday morning, she walked into the building wearing her usual navy slacks and flats so broken in they molded to her stress. She dropped her bag at her desk, flicked on her monitor, and saw the tracking update. FedEx, delivered 8:13 a.m., signed by R. Delgado, front desk. Her pulse flicked once, just once. She walked calmly to the front desk, signed the clipboard, and picked up the envelope. Matte, thick, and clearly not from Office Depot. No company logo, just a Swiss return address and a red customs sticker. Inside, one pristine, stamped original of her exclusive distribution contract. She didn't open it at the desk, just nodded her thanks to the receptionist, walked back to her seat, slipped the envelope under a thin stack of onboarding reports, and opened a spreadsheet. Heard Greg's voice drifting from down the hall, something about tightening margins and streamlining supply chains. Claire didn't even look up. The man had no idea that in less than 2 weeks his supply chain was going to belong to her. No alarms, no announcements, just slow, inevitable gravity pulling everything toward her. She clicked open her calendar, smiled faintly. Day 5, right on schedule. The email came in at 2:12 p.m. Subject line, urgent. Reorder microcomponent batch Q3. Sent by Ethan in procurement, a well-meaning 20-something who still believed in team happy hours and the myth of upward mobility. Hey Claire, can you please process the regular batch reorder for the Helvex units? Same specs, same quantity. Greg wants this on the calendar by COB. Claire read it twice, then once more slowly. No panic, no glee, just precision. She clicked mark as unread, then she stood up, walked to the break room and made herself a mug of coffee using the machine she hated. Always weak, always too hot. She took a sip, burned the roof of her mouth slightly. She didn't flinch. By 3 o'clock, Ethan followed up, just checking any update on that order. She replied at 3:17 with a single line, will advise shortly. Then she closed her work laptop and opened her personal one. That night, she sat at her kitchen table, still in her office clothes, sleeves rolled up like a surgeon prepping for something irreversible. Her apartment was silent. No music, no wine, just the hum of the fridge and the hollow pop of fingers against keys. She opened the final version of the exclusivity contract and reviewed it for the 8th time. Every clause was ironclad, reviewed by lawyers on both sides. 5-year term, automatic renewal unless terminated in writing. She clicked sign. Then she opened her resignation letter. Plain font, no flair. Just bulletproof language. Effective immediately, I am resigning from my position as sourcing manager at Benton Systems. Please note, all inquiries related to Helvex components, including past and future orders, should now be directed to Mitchell Sourcing and Distribution, LLC. Contact info is attached. She attached the official price list. The numbers were not friendly. The component they'd been buying at $4 per unit, now listed at $42. No discounts, no bulk deals, no sweetheart pricing, just reality. She printed the resignation, folded it cleanly, and slipped it into a crisp envelope. The price sheet went in separately. She left both in her bag. The next morning, Claire arrived before the janitor had turned off the security lights. The building was still groggy, humming like it hadn't had its coffee yet. She walked into Greg's office, placed the envelope neatly on the middle of his desk. No post-it, no explanation. Then she walked out, back to her cubicle, opened her Outlook, and hit send on the email that had been sitting in drafts for 6 days. Subject, resignation, Claire Mitchell, no emojis. No fond farewells, no thank you for the opportunity. Just cold, crisp utility. Greg, effective today, I am resigning from my position. Please direct all future component inquiries to my business address. Claire at Mitchell Sourcing.com. Regards, Claire Mitchell. She clicked send, closed the laptop, slid her office keycard into a drawer, and stood up. There were no goodbyes, no slow claps. Just the sound of someone down the hall laughing at a TikTok, unaware that the supply chain was collapsing in real time. Claire walked out the front door without looking back. The office would keep spinning for a little while, but the center was gone, and she had just become gravity. Greg's first call came in at 8:44 a.m. Missed. Second call, 8:49. Voicemail. Third call, this one from his personal cell, buzzed once before Claire hit silent and flipped the phone face down on the patio table. She sipped her coffee and scrolled logistics numbers on her tablet, sunlight warming her bare feet. Inside her inbox, things were unraveling fast. Subject, urgent. Immediate component reorder subject. WTF is Mitchell Sourcing LLC? Subject, Claire, please call me. She didn't. By 10:13 a.m., Ops was in a tailspin. The reorder Ethan had tried to place triggered a bounce-back from Helvex's internal system. A polite auto-reply, thank you for your interest in Helvex components. All North American distribution is now managed exclusively through Mitchell Sourcing and Distribution, LLC. For inquiries, contact Claire at mitchellsourcing.com. Greg forwarded the email to legal. Subject line, what the hell is this? By noon, the first emergency meeting was underway. Claire's name floated through panicked calls like smoke, procurement's Cassandra, now gone, now gospel. That's when someone dug deeper. And that's when they realized there was no backup supplier. No second source. Because Claire had been quietly sunsetting all alternatives for the last 6 months. Just-in-time inventory tweaks here. some cost efficiency consolidations there. Every memo she'd ever sent now looked suspiciously strategic. Legal opened the PDF. The exclusivity agreement glared back in 12-point Helvetica. Mitchell Sourcing and Distribution, LLC is hereby granted sole and exclusive rights to distribute, sell, and manage Helvex microcomponents within the United States for a term of 5 years. The signature line was Jacob's, stamped, dated, notarized. The legal team huddled. There were no loopholes, no backdoors, no friendly amendments. Claire had done her homework. The contract might as well have been carved in stone. Greg's face, according to Marcy, who later spilled to a supplier, went from pink to bone white in under a minute. He called again at 1:22. Claire watched it ring. Let it die, instead. She opened a fresh message to Helvex's shipping coordinator. Subject, First U.S. Invoice batch Katerina, please confirm payment received for PO001A. Per contract, the first shipment is cleared to depart on Friday. Best, Claire. Meanwhile, Benton Systems was hemorrhaging calm. Production teams were told to pause while procurement reassessed supplier terms. Marketing quietly pulled 3 product pages. And Greg, flushed, sweating, furious, stormed into a boardroom with a printed copy of Claire's resignation letter and price sheet, shouting something about betrayal. But betrayal implies surprise. Claire didn't betray them, she just moved the pieces they handed her. She didn't feel smug, not exactly. But when she closed her laptop that night and looked out over the quiet skyline, there was a thrum deep in her chest. Not pride, not revenge, just certainty. They underestimated her. Now they'd pay her for it at a 950% markup. The quarterly numbers hit like a bat to the teeth. COGS on the flagship product had tripled overnight. Profit margins? Gone. Like someone had snuck into the accounting department at midnight and set fire to the spreadsheets. At first, Greg tried to spin it. Temporary vendor turbulence, he told the executive team, waving Claire's price sheet like it was a weather report instead of the end of his career. Negotiating new terms. Everything's under control, except nothing was. Manufacturing stalled by Tuesday. Orders were backlogged, clients were irate. Internal chatter bubbled over in Slack threads and passive-aggressive meeting invites. Then came the leak. A procurement intern, some 21-year-old who still wore their university lanyard like a talisman, posted a grainy photo of Claire's resignation letter and price list on Reddit. Title, Procurement Queen Quits. Becomes our sole supplier, charges 10x. Honestly, respect. It went viral by lunchtime. The thread exploded with comments. This is my villain origin story. She's him, but make it her. Corporate betrayal turned capitalist poetry. Meanwhile, investors got jittery. 2 pulled out by Friday. 1 issued a statement that included the phrase unacceptable dependency risk created by internal personnel decisions. Translation, y'all screwed yourselves and now we're not funding your funeral. Greg was demoted to Senior Advisor, Vendor Relations, a title so neutered it might as well have been printed in Comic Sans. His mug disappeared from the internal homepage. His email started bouncing a week later. Claire watched it all unfold from her new office, glass walls, real wood desk, a smart espresso machine that didn't belch steam like a dying walrus. She said nothing, until a small industry podcast reached out, The Sourcing Shift, hosted by a soft-voiced logistics consultant with a love for quiet drama. She agreed. The episode dropped Monday morning. 32 minutes in, the host asked, "Do you regret it?" Claire didn't even pause. "Sometimes," she said, voice low and steady, "you have to lose a job to gain leverage." Then she added, "I didn't burn bridges. I built my own." That quote made it to LinkedIn in 24 hours. Memified, screen printed, stolen by influencers. Benton Systems stock dropped another 12% by Thursday. And Claire? She was already preparing the next shipment. Box labels bearing her new logo, sleek black lines, minimalist font. No applause, no parade, just purchase orders and power. Claire's new office was everything her last one wasn't: clean, quiet, designed for focus instead of surveillance. No carpet stains, no ceiling tiles sagging with water damage, no shared printer that jammed every other Wednesday while Greg cursed from 2 doors down. Here, the walls were whitewashed brick. 1 long window overlooked the Helvex loading dock where forklifts moved with the rhythm of profit. Below, cargo containers lined up like loyal soldiers. On each box, her logo. Sharp, black, unmistakable. Mitchell Sourcing and Distribution, LLC. It looked good in ink. It looked even better in motion. Claire leaned back in her chair, sipping a chilled bottle of water with actual mineral content, not the stale filtered sludge from the 5-gallon jug in her old break room. Her inbox pinged. The subject line hit like déjà vu. Urgent bulk quote request Benton Systems from Victoria Delaney, newly appointed Director of Procurement. Claire remembered her. Once a fast-talking junior analyst with too much perfume and a nervous laugh in stakeholder meetings. Now she was doing cleanup duty. The email was long, begging, professionally dressed as strategy. Phrases like potential partnership revival, preferred vendor status, and cost synergies tried to wrap themselves around the central ask like ivy around a tombstone. Translation, please, Claire, give us a discount. We can't afford $42 a unit. Claire didn't hesitate. She clicked reply, typed 1 sentence, and hit send. My prices are not negotiable. No salutation, no sign-off, just the truth. She closed her inbox. Down below, the next shipment was being sealed. 12 pallets, 28,000 units. Paid in full by one of Benton's competitors, an up-and-coming startup that treated Claire like a partner, not a paper pusher. No celebration music played. No confetti fell. But in that moment, sitting in a space she owned, overlooking a supply chain she controlled, Claire felt something rare, closure without compromise. Not vengeance for vengeance's sake, not spite, just the math balancing itself. She stood, walked to the window, and watched as the final container door clanged shut. A clean echo. If $1,500 was too expensive, she thought, they're really gonna hate 42. Then she smiled and got back to work. Big thanks for watching, you sneaky seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. Your ex-colleagues won't know what hit 'em.